Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, the United States makes a landmark change to its Middle East foreign policy. Uruguay and Argentina give Israeli soccer fans something to talk about, and later we'll reveal a groundbreaking study that offers insights into your pet's personality. Just as relative quiet begins to set in along the south, Israeli defense forces have announced 4 rockets launched towards Israel's northern Golan Heights. The Iron Dome defense system reportedly intercepted all the rockets, though, and the IDF says it's unlikely that any projectiles actually landed within Israel's borders. But in any case, the rockets were reportedly launched by an Iranian or Iranian proxy force from the area around Damascus in Syria around 5 a.m. And they're supposedly in response to a recent alleged attack. As per policy, though, Israel has neither commented on nor claimed responsibility for any recent assaults. Israel does appear, however, to have retaliated against the early morning rockets, as the Syrian Monitoring Center for Human Rights claims that shortly after Israel was attacked, there was a corresponding 5 missiles launched at targets in south and southwest Damascus. Then finally, state-run Syrian media also says that the blast hit near Damascus International Airport without offering further details. And following the flare-ups, Israeli officials say that no special safety precautions would be in place in the north. Moving on, there's been a major change in the United States' foreign policy following the highly controversial EU labeling ruling, and it's sending shockwaves through the Middle East.
The Trump administration is reversing the Obama administration's approach towards Israeli settlements. U.S. public statements on settlement activities in the West Bank have been inconsistent over decades.
In a breaking news broadcast, United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has just announced that the United States will no longer consider Israeli settlements in the disputed territories to be illegal per se under international law. And this includes East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. But Pompeo's announcement challenges the notion held by countries around the world that Jewish settlements are de facto illegal and therefore an obstruction to peace, which is why Israeli leaders like both Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz are applauding Washington's decision.
אזרחי ישראל, זהו יום היסטורי ועוד הישג עצום למדיניות שלנו. אחרי שהנשיא טראמפ הכיר בירושלים כבירת ישראל, הכיר בריבונותנו ברמת הגולן, עכשיו הממשל האמריקני שם קץ לשקר שההתנחלויות הן בלתי חוקיות. אני מודה לנשיא טראמפ ואני מודה למזכיר המדינה פומפאו.
Then the move also returns the United States' Middle East foreign policy back to the Reagan era. In 1978, the United States State Department held a legal opinion that settlements are inconsistent with international law. Then in 1981, President Reagan challenged that idea, and it wasn't until 2016 that Secretary of State John Kerry changed the policy again to its most recent form by publicly claiming the settlements to be illegal. Meanwhile, the new policy shift comes just days after the EU High Court's ruling against the Psagot winery's appeal, saying that all Jewish Israeli products from disputed territories must be labeled as such. Psagot first petitioned against the labeling in France, calling it discriminatory, a double standard, and an attempt to boycott Israeli businesses in support of the BDS movement. All right, now with such a groundbreaking announcement, it's obvious that world leaders will have something to say. And to give us a rundown of the responses following Pompeo's declaration that settlements are not illegal is ILTV's Shanna Fold. Shanna, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
Take it away. What's up?
So the news from Pompeo last night was pretty groundbreaking, and as I'm sure everybody expected, there were responses from people all around the world, and I just wanted to share some of them with you. First off, I couldn't help but wonder what the EU was going to respond to this, and what they said was that all settlements activity is illegal under international law, and it erodes the viability of the two-state solution and the prospects for lasting peace. So that's kind of what I think everyone expected, was that they were going to double down on the ruling that has been in place, that settlements are illegal according to the International Court of Law. Yeah.
All right, but obviously this is a very controversial decision with a lot of actors on each side. So, who are some of the people pro and against, and what do they have to say?
So Egypt and Jordan both made statements. Egypt said that the settlements are illegal and contrary to international law. Jordan said that it kills the two-state solution. And also Bernie Sanders said that it's occupied territory and that it undermines diplomacy by pandering to the extremist base. So these are some pretty harsh words from the left. Now, also on the right, we have a lot of celebration on this. So we have Lindsey Graham said that this advances peace and that while he believes in a two-state solution, he thinks that the Trump administration is ultimately going to advance peace talks. With this, Senator Ted Cruz said that they're finally righting the wrong and that it'll be up to Israeli allies to decide what to do with the territories. Something interesting from a representative from New York named Lee Zeldin. He was interesting because he actually said something a little bit more in depth, a little bit less PC. He said that adding insult to injury when Secretary Kerry back in 2016 gave a speech condemning the settlements, that this now, and that he was vilifying the Israeli people and letting the Palestinian Authority off clean. And so the U.S. has now become a greater ally in righting that wrong. So I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so what about the Palestinian Authority? Because I know obviously we talked about the surrounding countries, we talked about the EU and how they're, like you said, doubling down. What did Abbas and some of the other actors in the Palestinian Authority have to say?
Of course, so the most, I think, influential voice here is going to be the one from the Palestinian side, and their spokesperson gave a very meaningful, powerful statement. They said that the declaration was baseless, unacceptable, condemned, and totally in contravention with international law, and it is a decision that rejects settlement building, especially in the United Nations. Now, I want to also note that the UN has put together a last-minute meeting tomorrow in which they're going to convene to discuss what the ramifications of the U.S. releasing this announcement is going to be. So that'll be very interesting to see. And also, one more important point is that the American embassy here in Israel actually issued a warning against Americans who are visiting Israel, and they are asking that Americans do not visit the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, Gaza or Jerusalem, and that they should be aware of groups in Israel and in the settlement areas that might want to cause harm or violence as a backlash to this announcement, which is...
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're really kind of playing their cards close to the vest and maybe trying to keep people safe, and I don't know, preemptive.
They're taking this very seriously.
Very serious. Yeah, it seems like they really see a backlash on the horizon. But at any rate, we'll see what happens. Shanna, thank you so much for coming in. All right, well, here now via Skype, speaking on the international response to the U.S.'s new settlement policy, please welcome diplomatic correspondent from the Israel Hayom Daily, Arielle Kahana.
Hello, guys. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? All right, so...
okay.
Ariel, so tell us, what are the biggest reactions that came out following Pompeo's statements?
Well, naturally, we could see that the Europeans, I would say the left in Israel as well, didn't like so much Pompeo's declaration or statement from yesterday. But from the other side, you could hear, of course, from the Israeli Prime Minister, from the, I would say, mainstream Israelis, I would say they were glad with this new policy, because after many, many years, you have an administration that I must say they didn't go all the way to the Israeli position regarding settlement, because Pompeo didn't say yesterday that they agree with Israel that the settlements are legal. They just said it is not illegal, like Europe is saying. So therefore, as I said, it looks like, I would say, a halfway towards Israel, but comparing to what we had in the past, especially during the Obama period, no doubt it was a major step, and that's why, at least in Israel, you could see a very positive response from yesterday and, of course, today.
Well, do you think that maybe this had anything to do with setting up a future unveiling of the United States' deal of the century?
Well, as far as I understand, not directly. In other words, the plan is waiting, I would say, in the White House, if you want, in Jared Kushner's room. It's in the closet. It's written. It's prepared. You're just waiting. The administration is waiting. There will be a government in Israel that could accept or react to the peace plan when it will be published. The point is, as we know, there is no government in Israel, and who knows when we will have one. So in the meantime, the administration is pushing forward other steps that, in their view, in the administration view, would not interfere the peace plan when it will be presented. And what we saw yesterday, in their view, is such a step. They have no ties with the Palestinians. Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas is boycotting the administration. So they have actually no reason why not to make this change regards the legal position of the settlements and Judea and Samaria. But if we know this, if this scenario will happen, that we will have a government in Israel, and the administration will publish the peace plan, and negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians will begin, and who knows if it will happen ever. So then we will have to see how the statement from last evening is related to the peace plan. But all that, as you can see, is so theoretical so far. So
well, now a minute ago you also touched on the coalition negotiations. You know how we have an interim government right now, and it's iffy on how the future government might react to this. But already we're seeing a little bit of a division. Obviously, most people in the Israeli government are supporting this ruling from Pompeo, but we're seeing some division. Do you see that playing into the negotiations over the next 24, 36 hours with Gantz?
No, I mean, in a way, there was divide, there was difference last evening, Israeli time. There was the difference between Netanyahu's reaction to Pompeo declaration and Benny Gantz's reaction. Gantz said that any step by the administration should be good for both sides. Netanyahu, on the other hand, said it's good for Israel. And he also critiqued. He went publicly against Gantz's reaction. But all that, I believe, won't have any impact on the negotiations to establish a unity government here in Israel. By the way, while we are talking, there are a few developments that might bring us to a government after actually almost a year. I'm not sure, but comparing to what we had until today, until a few hours ago, I would say, something is moving on. Anyhow, the issues about whether we will have or will not have a new government are, Netanyahu's legal position, the rotation, when Netanyahu will leave his office, if at all, etc., etc. The policy regarding Palestinians, I would say, is far from being first, second, or even third priority.
All right, Arielle Kahana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, another news, the highly anticipated all-star soccer game that Israelis have been waiting for has finally arrived, and it does not disappoint. Israelis didn't have to take a 20-hour flight to see South American soccer superstars at play, as last night nearly 30,000 fans came out to pack the stands for the friendly match between the Argentinian and Uruguayan national teams. The teams are internationally revered and are also known to be rivals, but it wasn't just the prestige behind the game that had Israelis, Palestinians, a mass number of Latino immigrants, and ultra-Orthodox Jews all screaming outside of the tour buses. It was the star power of Lionel Messi, who represented Argentina, and Luis Suarez of Uruguay, especially as the players usually work together for the FC Barcelona team when they aren't representing their home countries. Well, Monday night, Suarez made an impressive free kick following a foul, and the ball flew across the field, gliding into the net after touching the top of the goalie's hands. He fell to the ground, and fans lost it. Then Uruguay's Edinson Cavani and Argentina's Sergio Aguero also scored goals, so in the end, the friendly match ended with a friendly tie. But still, known as having some of the top players in the world, this may have been the highest profile game to ever have been held on Israeli soil, and to think that it almost didn't happen. What an amazing game. On another note, marathon runners are their own breed, but there's one special woman in Israel who sets her own rules, and she might just be running all the way to Japan for the 2020 Olympics. ILTV's Nittany Manson has the story.
Deutsch is just about 7 minutes away from the guaranteed qualification time for a marathon run. But to be a shoo-in, you need to run 26 miles in about 2 hours and 29 minutes. And Deutsch's personal best comes in at a time of 2 hours and 36 minutes. It doesn't mean she can't make one of the top 80 international spots for runners, though. And anyway, having her eyes on the marathon isn't the only thing that sets Deutsch apart from other women in Israel either. She's also just 30 years old, a mother of 5, an active Instagrammer with 8,500 followers, and she runs in full-length clothes due to her ultra-Orthodox Jewish religious observance. Also originally from the US, Deutsch moved to Israel at age 19, where she got married and started a family with her Orthodox husband, Michael. And she only picked up running at the age of 26 as a way to lose the pregnancy weight. Well, now she's one of the top 3 female distance runners in Israel. In fact, Deutsch runs 90 miles every week, in addition to 2 daily workouts, and friends and family say that when she sets her mind to something, she does it.
Now back to our main news of the day. The United States has changed its policy towards the Israeli settlements in disputed territories, and by doing so, it's opened the door to new business options for Israel. But with the BDS movement still trying to cut us off, paired with the new EU ruling, how will Israel deal with this problem? Well, here to try and explain one option is attorney Kalev Myers, founder and president of Arise. Kalev, thank you so much for being with us today. What is Arise?
Well, Arise is an acronym for the Alliance to Reinforce Israel's Security and Economy. But basically, it's an organization I founded thinking that the most effective way to combat BDS and the growing boycott campaign in the West is by creating more business for Israel. We can't boycott the boycotters. And I see very little effectiveness through legal and even legislative means of actually combating BDS. And so what we do is we turn to what I call low-hanging fruit, which are people who are ideologically or faith-motivated to do business with Israel. There's tens of millions of evangelical Christians who support Israel in the nations. Many of them are business people. Many of them, if given the chance, want to do business with Israel, want to bring their business here, want to connect to the economy. So we invite them to a large summit and connect them with Israeli entrepreneurs and Israeli technology.
So really, instead of kind of combating the naysayers, you're just empowering those who are already on Israel's side.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're a force multiplier for Israeli business. Incredible. And so we'll have around 600 business people from 50 different countries. On the Israeli side, we work with the Israel Export Institute, Israel Manufacturers Association, Israel Chambers of Commerce, the Ministry of Economic Affairs. We have a digital B2B matchmaking platform so people can find each other easily and do their own tailor-made matchmaking and then meet face-to-face and do business.
And I understand you have an upcoming conference as well,
yes.
Is that correct?
On December 4th at the Lago Event Hall in Rishon LeZion, we'll be having this group descend on Israel, hoping to do business with us. If there's Israeli entrepreneurs that might be interested in having meetings at our summit, meeting some of the people coming in, you can go to www.ariseb2b.com and upload your profile, and then you can look through the people who are going to be participating in our summit and see if there's someone you want to meet.
Well, who are some of the companies or individuals that you're working with today?
Today, so our participants include very large, medium, small businesses, again, from 50 different nations, spread across many, many different sectors. There are some, for instance, we have a participant who's in the executive leadership of Walmart, which is obviously a massive company. But then we have small to medium-sized businesses as well. And we feel like what we're doing is kind of like a concierge service for business people, helping them find connect to the right people with the right technologies that can take their business to the next level.
All right, so to what degree, because I know you mentioned that you're partnering to some degree with the Israeli government, but to what degree is that partnership active, and what is Israel really doing with Arise?
So we do have a modest grant from the Ministry of Economic Affairs to support what we're doing. The Israel Manufacturers Association, Israel Export Institute, and the Federation of Binational Chambers of Commerce are also supported through the Ministry of Economic Affairs. So the government, I could say, is somewhat of a strategic partner in what we're doing. And so we're very excited about that.
And going back to kind of what brought this all on, the Pompeo statement,
Yeah.
he's saying we no longer per se, de facto consider the settlements illegal. How does that affect, Arize's mission statement and activities going forward?
Well, I think it was a good step. It's certainly a step that our crowd supports. Pompeo himself is a devout Christian, just like most of the people around Trump. There's a strong evangelical Christian lobby in Washington that's really pushing the government to take these steps, whether there's the recognition of Jerusalem, our sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now the latest announcement by Pompeo. Everybody's excited about this. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. This comes, of course, a week after the European Union, the Court of Justice made this decision regarding labeling of products going into the European Union. But again, I'm not sure that that's the biggest struggle is a legislative or legal struggle. We have supporters in Europe, again, mostly Christians, who say, well, thank God that now they're labeling wines that are created in Judea and Samaria will know which wines to buy, right? So at the end of the day, I'm not sure that decision has a terrible effect on business for Israel, but I prefer to work on the positive level. So what are we doing to create more business at the end of the day?
All right, well, good luck to you and your organization. It sounds incredible. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on, as medical technologies continue to progress, one of the biggest remaining challenges is in diagnosing infections as either viral or bacterial. Well, a new Israeli solution may now be changing this status quo. MeMed, a Haifa, Israel-based medical startup, has just received €2.5 million from the European Innovation Council for the second time for its incredible new platform, the ImmunoExpert. And it's an immune system test that can quickly determine whether or not an infection is bacterial or viral. So how quickly, you ask? Well, the standard procedure today focuses on personally identifying the disease-causing pathogen, which can take a lot of time. But ImmunoExpert looks at the immune system's response to determine whether it's fighting a bacterial or viral infection. And the results have been amazing, not just because of the diagnostic speed, but because of accuracy too. In fact, after multiple double-blind studies, ImmunoExpert had a consistently high success rate, especially in children. 93% specificity rate, and a 98% negative predictive value, which translates to a reduction in erroneous diagnoses by over 50%. Well, so as of now, MeMed is cleared for clinical use in the EU, Switzerland, and Israel, with plans to expand. And the company will use the latest grant to continue to challenge and improve the ImmunoExpert system. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Finally, there's an answer to the age-old question, what's a rodent's personality like? Now, if you're like me and you anthropomorphize everything that animals do, then this next report might not shock you. But a new Israeli-German study published in Nature Neuroscience proves that mice, just like us, have a wide range of personality. And it shows others how to test for it too. The method was developed by Israeli professor Alon Chen and researchers from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel and the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry in Munich. And it describes 60 observed behaviors that break down into an algorithm which extracts the rodent's personality traits and puts them on a sliding scale. However, aside from offering insight into the mind of individual animals, researchers hope this method will lead the way towards more personalized psychiatry, better treatments and prescriptions, and even the identification of genetic factors on personality. Again, though, for most pet owners, most of this news isn't that new. Take this mouse, for example. This is Molly, and we can tell that she's a nervous wreck as she seems to have misplaced her contact lens. Then here's Harriet, belting out her favorite aria. And finally, take a look at Jackson as he proudly shows his guests around his new apartment in this legally safe version of MTV Cribs. Now that mouse has personality. All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear and cold again with lows around 50 or 10 degrees Celsius, so it's time to dust off the mothballs from your winter sweaters. And then tomorrow will be sunny again with average highs around 73 in the north, 78 in the center, and 82 in the south, or 23, 26, and 28 degrees Celsius respectively. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.46 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.